Thank you for having us for an APA 7 referencing session. This presentation will be available on the subject LMS page for CMPR111 on the connections loop, so you will have access to the slides and links. We will cover the basics of referencing today and show you resources you can refer to when working on your assignments. Endeavour College uses the American Psychological Association APA 7 referencing style. You need to reference correctly in your assignments to acknowledge your sources, which is a legal requirement, to allow readers access to the information you used, and avoid the risk of plagiarism. We will go through the basic building blocks for referencing your assignments so you can provide evidence of research, which is what markers are looking for. Plagiarism is basically taking the work of others and presenting it as your own. By not acknowledging sources correctly within the body of your assignment, using in-text citations, and by not including a full and correct reference list at the end of your assignment. There are two common types of plagiarism when writing an assignment: improper use of someone else's words and improper use of someone else's ideas. Word plagiarism occurs when you use another author's exact words or phrases without quotation marks. So you need a double quotation mark. If you use an author's words directly, even your own words from a previous paper, you must use quotation marks in addition to an in-text citation to let readers know that these are not your original words. Double quotation mark to finish the direct quote, and an in-text citation. In this example, the author is an organizational author, American Psychological Association, comma, year of publication that information was made available, comma, and the page number where that information came from, and the full stop at the end of the sentence outside the in-text citation. Idea plagiarism occurs when you summarize an idea from another source without citing the author and year. When you write about a concept or idea in a paper without including an in-text citation, you are saying to the reader that it is your own idea. Author, year, in brackets, full stop. The most blatant form of idea plagiarism occurs when students see a good argument or idea in a paper and then present that argument or idea as their own. Another common form of idea plagiarism is when students remember a fact they learned in class and put it in their paper without citing evidence to support it, or when they write about a fact they heard somewhere and mistakenly assume it is common knowledge and doesn't need supporting evidence. Class lecture notes or online learning modules are not considered appropriate academic references. You need to read and reference the sources listed in the reference lists of these. Instead, always search academic literature, such as books and journals, to find a source for any idea, fact, or finding that you put in your paper. In general, cite one or two of the most representative sources for each key point. Paragraphs in your assignment represent key points. Therefore, each paragraph in your assignment, other than the introduction and conclusion, should include in-text citations. Include a citation when there is a direct quote, if you paraphrase or summarize work into your own words, if you're citing statistics, dates, figures such as images, when you include controversial facts or opinions that may be challenged, or include information that is not common knowledge. For example, it is common knowledge that there are 24 hours in a day. It is not common knowledge that ginger is effective for high blood pressure. That requires supporting evidence. Paraphrasing versus direct quotations are the two ways to introduce a source when writing an assignment. The first is the simplest way, a direct quote, word for word in double quotation marks with an in-text citation. This method, though, should only ever represent no more than 10% of your assignment, because you are not showing the marker that you have understood and interpreted the information. So you should reserve this technique for technical information or definitions that you don't know how to put into your own words. Direct quotes require a page number. as well as the author surname and year of publication. This citation has the words et al. After the author surname. Et al. Means and others in Latin. And as soon as there are more than 2 authors for a particular source, the citation is written this way, so it does not take up too much room in the body of the assignment. The rest of the authors are listed in the reference list at the end of the paper, but this short citation allows readers to locate that correct reference in that list. The second way to introduce a source in your assignment is to paraphrase, which just means to summarize into your own words. In-text citations can be narrative, which is when you introduce the author within the sentence, like this example here, or what we call parenthetical citations, which just means in brackets at the end of the sentence. Papers will normally have a combination of these methods, and both are correct. So paraphrase means using your own words to summarize an idea. And the easiest way to avoid repeating sentence structure or lifting phrases from other works is to read a section of that work, then put it down and write notes in your own words. Only changing a few words or rearranging the sentence is called patch writing and is not appropriate. So if you compare the original passage here to the patch written example, you can see that the sentence might have been rearranged, but only a few of the joining words separate those two. They're not different enough. The keywords are too similar, and while the idea has been acknowledged with author and year, the wording has not. The writer is presenting the words as their own, which is considered a form of plagiarism, and markers will be checking to make sure you avoid this. So how do we do it correctly? Here's an example of correct paraphrasing. You will see there are several technical phrases in the original: hostile workplace, lawsuits, absenteeism. So if you read this paragraph and then had to explain to someone else what it meant, you would likely use different language. In the paraphrased example, the student has used their own voice to present the same concepts. Employees experience negative outcomes such as stress and disengagement when their organizational leaders lack emotional and social skills. They've summarized using less words, less technical words to represent the general concepts presented in the first section. By doing this, you show the marker that you have understood the content. There's also an in-text citation in the sentence to show where the information came from. And at the end of the assignment on a new page, there would be a list of references used in the paper, and the reference for this in-text citation would look like this. This is an example of a journal article reference. So how much citation is needed? Remember to cite the source in the first sentence it is relevant. A paraphrase may continue for several sentences, and in such cases, you cite the work being paraphrased on first mention, but once the work has been cited, it is not necessary to repeat the citation as long as the context of the writing makes it clear the same work continues to be paraphrased. You can see in this example that the paraphrase goes on for 3 sentences, and you would repeat the citation if you began a new paragraph. And you also repeat citations when they are interrupted by citing other sources within the same paragraph. So here we have Velez. Then we used a different source. So we have a different in-text citation for this information. And therefore we repeat Velez if we introduce Velez again in that paragraph. We also always include a citation for a direct quote within the sentence to show the reader where that direct quote came from immediately. Over-citation is repeating the same citation in every sentence in a paraphrase when the source and topic have not changed within that paragraph. So only Velez at the first sentence here is required, and the other 2 are considered unnecessary. So that is over-citation. Under-citation is a citation only at the end of a paragraph, for example, especially when there have been many ideas and facts that have been discussed throughout. This example only attributes Velez to the information in the final sentence. You are telling the marker that there is no evidence to support the ideas in the first two sections of this paragraph. If you wanted the marker to know that, Velez has to be introduced at the beginning of the paragraph, not at the end. Here is a summary table of how in-text citations are written depending on the number of authors, one author, two authors, more than two, or organizational author, and what a reference entry looks for these authors. That might be an example of a reference list entry depending on these number of authors. Things to take note of. When there are two authors in a narrative citation, you use the word and. But in brackets at the end of the sentence, you use the symbol and. When using et al. Within the sentence, there's a little full stop after al. In brackets at the end of the sentence, there's a little full stop followed by a comma. When there is a group author and it's quite a long name and you'd like to use an acronym, so as soon as you use a organizational author more than twice an assignment, it can be useful to introduce an acronym to cut down on your word count. But you must always explain to the reader the first time you use an acronym what it means. And this is an example of that. WHO is going to be used for World Health Organization. So the first time you explain to the reader, and then you can use the acronym after that. In brackets at the end of the sentence, it just gets formatted slightly differently, and you never use an acronym in the reference list. You spell out the organization in full only. Full descriptions of all of these rules are outlined in the full Endeavour referencing guideline, which we have linked here for you.
I am going to show you how to create the reference list. So we have to acknowledge each source in an in-text citation, and that in-text citation requires a full reference list entry. So to create your reference list, you write the word references in bold and centered at the top of a new page at the end of your assignment. References are in alphabetical order by the first author surname. Each reference is indented after the first line by ½ an inch. This should be your Microsoft Office default setting. The whole reference list is double-spaced, and the basic elements for each reference are author, publication date, title, and source. So this is what a reference list looks like. We have the reference centered and in bold at the top of the page. And then we have our references in alphabetical order by author first surname. They're indented. And in this case, if there is a live link, they're in blue. You can, for aesthetic purposes, make them black, but I prefer just to leave them blue. So our first example is a journal reference. So you have, when you start off your reference, you have your author, last name. This is the first author that's listed, his last name, then a comma, then the initials, and the initials are separated by a full stop and a space. The last initial gets a comma, and at your last, before you list your last author, you use an ampersand. And then you have your last author, surname, comma, space, and the initials with a space and a full stop in between. Your last initial has a full stop, a space, and then the year that the article was written goes in brackets. with a full stop after the bracket. There's a space after that full stop, and then we have the title of the article. So we capitalize the first letter of the first word. Everything else is in lowercase unless it's a proper noun. After the end of the title of the article, we put a full stop. And then we have the name of the periodical or journal. So it's italicized. All the major words are capitalized. The only ones that aren't capitalized are the little joining words. We then have a comma and the volume number. Now this is also italicized. Right up hard against the volume number comes the issue number. It is not italicized and it goes in brackets. And after the last bracket, we have a comma, a space, and then the page numbers. Then a full stop and the DOI. So if your article has a DOI, you include it. If it doesn't have a DOI and you've got it through one of our subscribed databases, it finishes here at the full stop after the last page number. If you've got your journal article from somewhere outside the Endeavour databases, then if it doesn't have a DOI, you would include a URL. This is an example of a journal reference. So author surname, comma, space, the initial with a full stop, another space, the year in brackets with a full stop after the last bracket, a space, then we have the title of the article. Now, this title has two sentences. So this is the first sentence, and it ends here at the colon. Now, the word Chinese is capitalized because it's the first word of the article title. Yang is capitalized because it's a proper noun. And then after the colon is a space, and then the first word of the second sentence. And so that is capitalized. The first letter of that word is capitalized as well. Then there's a full stop at the end of the article title. And then we have the name of the journal. So it is italicized. Then we have a comma and the volume number, which is also italicized. The issue number is in brackets. It's not italicized. And we have a comma, a space, the page numbers, a full stop, and in this case, the DOI, because that came with the article. So this is an example of a book reference. So in the book reference, we do the same things with our authors' names. We have the first author, a comma, space, initial, full stop, space, next initial, full space, comma, the ampersand before the last author's name, if there's more than one author. And then we have a full stop after that last initial, the space, and then the year the book was written, which is its copyright year. This is usually found on the other side of the title page. The title page is the page that has the name of the book, who wrote it, all the publishers. Turn over that page and there'll be a whole load of writing on the back and you will see a copyright year. And that's the year that goes here in brackets with a full stop at the end. And then we have a space and then we have the title of the book. This is in italics. The first word, the first letter of the first word is capitalized. And if your book has an edition and or volume number, they go after the title of the book in brackets and they are not italicized. The word edition here, which is a shortening, and because it is a shortened version of edition, it has a full stop after it. then another bracket, and then a full stop. And then you have the publisher of the book, full stop. If the book has a DOI, you always include it, and you include a URL if the book has come from somewhere that's not part of the Endeavour offering. So if you've got your ebook through the library databases, through the library catalogue, you won't need to put a URL here. It will finish here at the publisher. So this is examples of a book reference. So as you can see, we've got the surname, a comma, space, initial, full stop, another space. The copyright year is in brackets with a full stop. And then there's a space to the title of the book. So the first letter of the first word is capitalized. Chinese is capitalized because it's regarded as a proper noun. And then we have a colon. And then we have a space, and then the word, and then the first letter of this word is capitalized because it's the first word of the second sentence in the title. Then it's all italicized, then there's a full stop, and then there's the name of the publisher. Now, this book is also available as an ebook from our databases, and I'll show you how to access that in a moment. And so its reference finishes here at the publisher's name, because we don't need to include the URL because it's coming from one of our subscriptions. The next book has an edition. And this is how you write the edition. It's not italicized. It goes in brackets. And there is a full stop after the D because it's a shortening of the word edition. This is how to reference a website. So websites are some of the trickier things you will reference. Sometimes you will have an organization's name as the author, and other times you're going to have a personal name. So if you have an organization name, it goes here as it's been written with a full stop at the end. Then you have the date that the page was updated on. So sometimes you'll see that it was modified, updated on, and they will give you a full date. So it will be day, month, and year. And there's a specific way to write it, and I'll show you that in the next example. There's a full stop after the date, and then we have the title of the web page. That's in italics, and only the first letter of the first word is capitalized unless there's a proper noun. There's a full stop at the end of the title of the web page, and then a site name. So if you have a personal author here, or the author's name is different to the site name, you put the organization name here, the site name here. But if they're the same, then you can exclude the site name and go straight to the URL. So here are some examples of website referencing. So this first one has an organization as an author. So we've capitalized everything but the joining words, or capitalized the first letter of all the major words, and the joining words are all in lowercase. There's a full stop, and then this is how you write the dates when you've got a website reference, or any kind of reference where they actually give you a full date. So you do the year, comma, the month you write out fully, and the day is written numerically. Then you have the bracket, the full stop, and then the name of the page, a full stop. I don't need to put a site name in because the site name is the same as the author's name, and then I have the URL. This next reference is one with a personal author. So personal author, I do surname, comma, initial, full stop. If there was more than one initial, I would put the other initials in as well. Then I have the year, which once again is the date of publication is the year, comma, month, and then day written numerically. In bracket, full stop, the name of my article, the name of my web page is written in italics with a full stop at the end, and then I have the name of the page, the name of the site. So you write this out however they've written it, however they have spelt it, and however they've written it. Like in this case, you can see it's all one big long word, but that is how they have written it, and that's how we write it. Full stop at the end and the URL. So this is our reference list that we have put together from all those examples. So what you need to see here is we have 2 references by the American Psychological Association. This first one is for the publication manual, and that's a book, and it's the 7th edition, and it has a DOI. The second reference is from the American Psychological Association, but it was written in 2021. So the earliest date goes first. So we have 2020 and then 2021. And then we have the rest of our the rest of our authors put in the reference list alphabetically. Referencing help. So we've got help that you can look at online. The first one is the library's referencing guide. And here is the page. So we've got some information on referencing, plagiarism, how to format your assignment, paraphrasing and direct quotes, how to do the in-text citations by the number of author or author type. And here is the reference list. So it's got all those basic ones, the website, the journal, article, book or an ebook, a database. And I'm just going to show you software and apps. And I'm going to go into the Key Food app because this is one that you will use when you're putting together assignments. And this is how it looks. We've got like the template here because the year and the version may change, but everything else will probably stay the same. So the version goes after the name of the app. It's in brackets and it's not italicized. The type of app that it is goes in square brackets, and then there's a full stop afterwards, and then whichever app store you've got your app from and the link out to it. And then your citations are from the author's surname and date. And when you're citing from a website, you only include the year. So I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. So this is the APA referencing guideline. So this is a PDF version of that online referencing guide that I've shown you. And if it's easier for you, you can print it up, or else you can just download the PDF and use it. Referencing FAQs. So this is not just referencing FAQs. This is if you're studying at night or on the weekend and you're looking for help, this is a good place to go. So if I type in ebook and press enter, these are all the results for ebooks. So I've got how to find and open an ebook. How do I reference a book using APA 7? How do I find books in the catalogue? How do I find my prescribed and recommended readings or textbook? How do I reference a one volume of a multi-volume work? We've put in lots and lots of FAQs that will help you. And if you do a general search, you'll get a lot more results. But if you're not quite sure what you're looking for, this is a good way to find them. And sometimes if you're not having any luck, it's worth doing a really general search, because the terms you're using might not quite match up to the terms in the FAQ. So it's a good thing to try and to have a look at, particularly when you need help and the library is closed. So now I'm going to take you to the Chinese Medicine Library Guide. So these are pages that have been put together specifically for the Chinese medicine students. So this is the welcome page. On the left here, you can click on these to either speak to myself or Michelle to get referencing or research help. If you're having trouble accessing the ebooks for some reason, you can hop on an email and talk to us, and we're more than happy to help. We've got some things to start you off if you've not studied before. The library essentials, how to use the library website, how to find and access ebooks, and how to find journal articles with Discovery. So it's a nice page just to get you started with. We've got tabs for ebooks and e-audio, recommended databases and journals, and I'm going to show you one of the pages that Michelle and I have worked on to try and make it easier for you to find your prescribed and recommended readings for first year and second year subjects. So if you go here to year 1, prescribed and recommended, it brings up all the books for CMPR111, Foundations of Chinese Medicine, and for all your other first year subjects. They're all here, and they're nice and easy to find because they're all in one place. So to access an ebook from this page, you just click into the image of the book. So this is one of the books that I showed you when I was showing you the referencing guide, and it didn't have a URL because it's here. It's one of the books you can borrow from the library, so it comes from one of our subscribed databases. So you just treat it as you would a print book. So let's click into it, and I've been asked to log in so that they know that I'm a student of Endeavour, and it's your LMS login. So here's the book. It lets you know how many copies of this book are available to be borrowed. So we have unlimited access to this book, which means you can dive in and out of it whenever you want to use it. So I would recommend reading it online. So to read online, just click on the little purple image, and here is the book. So I can either scroll down here if there's a specific chapter I want to read, or I can do search within. So I'm going to type in ginger, and all these little purple lines show where ginger's been mentioned. So I'm going to go to page 35, and here it is, and ginger is highlighted so that it's easy to find. Another really great thing that only the ProQuest ebooks do is I can go here and I can go to a page. So if I'm told in my readings, go to page 100, read 172 to 175, I can just type in 172 here, and then I can read that page, and I can read however many pages I need to. The other thing that nearly all these databases have is a citing option. So if I click on that, format, I want APA. So when you're looking at the referencing format, always make sure that it's in APA. These are not perfect, but if you've got a book or a journal article with multiple authors' names, often they'll do it all for you. So even if you still have to fix up the rest of the reference, it at least does that for you. So this is almost perfect, but they haven't capitalized the word Chinese, which I would consider to be, in this case, to be a proper noun. So I would capitalize that. The colon needs to be hard up against the E in medicine. But other than that, the reference is perfect. As I said, you don't need to include the URL because this book comes from our subscribed databases. So it finishes at the publisher's name and a full stop at the end of it. So I am going to go back to the library homepage and show you our referencing tab. So we've put together this referencing area because there's a few things in Chinese medicine, some examples and things that crop up more frequently than they maybe do in some of the other areas. One of them is capitalizations. So we've put in examples, say terms that you might find in Chinese medicine, and then here whether they need to be capitalized, and we've got little examples to show you how to do it. And this is why I was saying you need to capitalize Chinese in Chinese medicine. So I'm going to go, I'm going to scroll back down here and translated books. A lot of our Chinese medicine texts are translated. And you have to acknowledge the translators. So this book was written originally in Mandarin by Zhang. The book that we're looking at was published in 1999, but Zhang wrote it in 196. So we write the name of the book. It's got a two-part title, so the on is capitalized. It's still all in italics. But after the name of the book, we put in the names of the translators, and we do them by initial with a full stop and then their last name. And we go all the way through to the last name when we have the and, first initial, full stop, the name, the last name of the author, a comma, and then a shortening of the word translator. So it's trans because there's more than one, with a full stop because it is a shortening of the word, a bracket, another full stop, the name of the publisher, and then because the original work was published a long time ago, we give it its original publishing date. And then when we do the in-text citations, we include both dates so that we know that there was an original publishing date and that this version of the book has been published later. Now, these last two here are regarded as having no author because they were when you look in the book, it says it's been written by a compiler. So compilers are treated like translators. They're not treated as the author of the book. And I like to think of compilers as being like you and me. We're putting together our music list for meditation, for exercise, and all we're doing is we're just putting together the music. We don't alter the music. You know, we don't touch it at all. We're just putting all the songs together, but in our own playlist. And that's what a compiler does. He just puts together the information. They don't change or alter anything, which the editors and the authors may do. So that's the difference. That's why in a compiled book, the title of the book goes first, and the compilers and or translators go in the bracket after the date that the book was written. So we've got a couple of examples here for you to follow. And it's just a handy place to know that that's where they are. So it's referencing examples, translated books. And the other tab that's really useful is assignment help. So assignment help, your lecturers have asked us to put together some tips and tricks that you can use when you're writing your assignments. So here it is for CMPR111, a flowchart. So this example here, we have used a Canva poster template, and this link will take you through to it. When you're doing this assignment, because it's a flowchart, you can use Microsoft Word or you can use Canva. I like Canva because any of the images that you use in Canva, you don't need to give any attribution to. You can just use them. And the same with any images from Microsoft Word and in PowerPoint. If you use images from books, then you have to, I'm going back, oops, not to that one, going back to the APA guide, then you have to use figures and tables and follow the templates here, depending on where your image came from. There we are, assignment help. Sorry, I lost my tab. So lots of help here in the Chinese medicine guide. If you get lost, stuck, can't remember where any of it is, get in touch with Michelle and I. We're happy to help. And that brings me on to consultations and the library chat service. So consultations are here. And so you've got the student view of the consultations page. So this is what the consultation tab looks like. So you can book a consultation on the day that suits you and at a time that suits you. So all these times are shown in Australian Eastern Standard Time because that is my time. But if you're in Perth, then your LMS should be set to Perth time and it will show these exact same consultation times, but in your time. So you can either book by time, you can book on your own campus. So if I want a face-to-face consultation with Benton, the Adelaide librarian, and I want a consultation one-on-one with him, I can book here, and I just have to say to Benton in the little note, can I have a face-to-face consultation with you? I am the virtual librarian, so I'm here, and I only do Zoom consultations. So I'm just going to take us back. I'm going back here. Now, this is the library homepage. So everything I've shown you is available through this page. Databases, referencing. This is the link to the Chinese Medicine Library Guide. And here, and here in pale blue is the link to book a consultation. The library FAQs are also available here. You can find a book here in this dark blue tab. And new ebooks are displayed here. And down here in the bottom right-hand corner is the library chat. So if you're working on your assignment and you would like to speak to someone, you can hop on the chat. You're having trouble finding an ebook, hop on the chat, can't find an article that you're looking for, just hop on the chat. There's nearly, most of the time the chat is manned, and if not, create a ticket, and as soon as someone's available, they'll answer the ticket and get back to you via your student email. So there's lots and lots of help for you. It's just a matter of reaching out and getting it. And if there's anything that I've shown you today or Michelle has shown you today, and you can't remember how to find it, please get in touch. Hop on an email, hop in the chat, and we're all happy to help you. And that concludes our library session today. It's been lovely meeting you all, and I will now hand you over to your lecturer.